Hey, this is Brian Hegney, instructor of game design. So we just looked at how we install and launch the engine. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can, or what is the engine, right? What can we do with it? What is it made out of? What's the user interface like? Notice now I have a new little box up here called example. That's the one I just started. So I'm just going to double click this example. And it should load, and I'm going to pause my recording screen while it's loading. That was actually really quick. It was only a minute. And so let's take a look at this. In the very middle, the thing that you notice is the viewport. The way we move around in our viewport, if you put your cursor in the viewport, right-click, and move your mouse, you can see you can look around. And for now, tap the WASD keys with your right mouse button held down, and you can move through your scene just like a game. And then, of course, using the Q and the E buttons will move you up and down in Z height. Okay, so we're kind of manipulating a camera in this scene. Okay, that's in here. If you want to play this game, you could click the play button up here on the top. And the thing about Unreal Engine with their playing, you have to click into the viewport to start making it go. You can't hit WASD right away, so I right click into the viewport and now I can look around and move around and shoot things and hit spacebar to jump, blah, etc. And then to get out of this, you hit escape. Now, I'm not really partial to playing this game or previewing it in my window because it actually maintains the aspect ratio of the window. So if you're working on something in your content browser or anything else and you just have a small window here and you click the play button, you see a really, weird screen to play in. And so what I like to do is click on the drop down arrow to the right of the play button and choose new editor window. And then once you choose that, it's going to be the default way to play your game. There we go. And so now it's the typical aspect ratio that you would actually have in your game. All right, next thing you should know. On the left here is a window called Place Actors, and this is where you can drag and drop all of these things here. So if you want another cube here, that's under Basic Cube, and I want to show you the difference between these cubes right now while I have you here. If I drag a cube here, and then drag it up and kind of push it down. There we go. This is a cube. It's referencing a static mesh. Okay, so you see the static mesh here on the details, and now is a good time to talk about the details panel. Every single object that you select has details about it, right? It's location, rotation, scale, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Well, this object here, called cube, static mesh actor, is referencing the static mesh cube. I could actually change this to the projectile, to a cube chamfer, and to the cube that it was referencing. It also has a typical material, and I can change materials if I want to. But I want to point out here the difference between this cube and if you go down to geometry, there's something called a box. Now, in the olden days, this was called a brush box. And this geometry tab would have actually said BSP brushes or BSP. And that stands for binary space partition. Binary space partition. And what this does is it looks dumber. It's like, it has a, whoops. It has a little grid system going on here. But this geometry box, which again, it is really a BSP brush. If I say a BSP brush, I'm referring to this. The cool thing about the BSPs is that you can edit them slightly. I'll show that in a little bit. But they're designed to build a level out really quickly. The history of 3D level design in games begins with the BSP brushes. If I wanted to make a hollowed out space here, Well, guess what? I'd click this subtract button down here and drag maybe another box in here. And I'd kind of move it in here. And what this binary space partition, or BSP brush, does is it kind of does a Boolean add subtract. So I can kind of keep doing this. I can keep dragging maybe this BSP brush in, and I'm moving around using my WASD keys and etc. And the other thing is, with this brush selected, I can change its size over in the details under brush settings. And that's why it says brush settings here. It's because this used to be called a brush. Now it's called a box geometry. You might hear my frustration with that for new students. I'm going to change the X and the Y by left-clicking and dragging. And now I'm going to use this move gizmo in my viewport. Kind of do this. And you can kind of see how you can build up a structure or an object using these 3 brushes in my world outliner, right? And now you can see this world outliner over here, and you can see that everything in this scene is listed in the world outliner. This outlines all of the components in the scene. And so what I could do is actually shift, or I could select this box brush, the first one I dragged in, shift select the last one to select all of them, and I'm going to click up here to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, sculpture for now, because I don't know what this is. And so that's me creating a subfolder, or a folder of those brushes in here. Now, the beauty of this is, what if I take brush 2 or brush 3, and I don't want it to be a negative brush. I actually want it to be a positive brush, or an addition brush. Let me move to my details. Under brush settings, I could set that instead of subtractive, it's to additive, and that adds that back. The other thing I can do is right-click this and say, hold on, this has an order. Let's see. I'm going to give me a moment. Okay, so if I actually select this brush, underneath brush settings, there is an advanced rollout tab. These little triangles pointing downward are advanced rollout tabs. The order, I could say it's to first or to last. And this is like basic addition and subtraction. If, let me set this back to subtractive. That makes sense to you, right? Let's move up here. So the reason why order matters is because if I started with the subtractive, if I set that to first, well, why is this brush not subtracting out that shape? It's because I started with the negative, and so you can't, if the negative is not now being subtracted from the positive, because this brush didn't exist yet. So what I'm going to do is select this brush and set it to first. There. Okay. If you lose track of your subtractive brushes because they're supposed to be invisible, you can set your view mode in your viewport from lit to brush wireframe. And now I can kind of see that. There it is. You can make it out if you can. There. And now I can go back to lit. Okay, so that's enough about brushes, I think, for now. We won't necessarily use them. I just wanted you to know, well, you might use them. I wanted you to know about them. And, you know, you can create staircases and things like that. Oh, that's a negative by accident, so I need to set that back to subtractive, or additive. There we go. And there's linears and all sorts of stuff. There's also something that we will use called the trigger volume, and we'll get to that much later. But just note, most of the things we can create are in here that come standard. The next thing we can do is down at the bottom is really the more powerful option, and this is called our content browser. it defaults to this view. I like to click this button on the left to show the sources panel, and this just gives you a hierarchical display. Now, one thing we did when we started this was start it without starter content. If you decide you want to add new starter content, I'm going to click the Add New and come up here to Add Feature or Content Pack. And I can go and add content packs, add starter content. And I'm going to click Add to Project. And I'm going to pause this. Okay, and now we have it added to our content. We've got a new folder called Starter Content. We've got architecture, audio, blueprints. Let's play that audio. It's a collapse. Blueprints, HDRI, maps, materials. We got some nice materials to work with. Particles, props, like I can drag this chair out here. And that's what these are kind of used for, these are filled with all sorts of types of objects. Many of them are static meshes. And we can kind of drag these into our scene and kind of place them all around, depending on how we want to move them. Shapes, textures. Okay, we'll get to more of these later. Now, right now I've got a first-person shooter template, right? And this is cool. Well, what if you want to change your project to a third person? One thing you can also do is click Add New, Add Feature or Content Pack, and we can go to Blueprint Feature and choose third person, and we can add that to our project as well. And now I've got a new map. Under third person blueprint in my content browser, I've got maps, and I've got a third person example map. Now, since we are on our first person example map, and we've changed this blueprint, look what happens, or this level, look what happens when we click third person example map. It's saying, hey, you have to save your content. So I'm going to cancel this and just cover this in a moment. I often rarely say save current. This saves current level to disk. That's fine, but what if you've made other changes? What if you've made changes to materials, to textures, to other things? I have gotten away with only ever clicking Save All. This is the best button to push if you want to save your work. Save All, it's going to say, hey, these are the things you saved or you've altered. The example map and then the build data. I'm going to save selected. Now I can click third person example map and it goes to a new level, and if you click play, you can see it's a totally different camera type and the controls are fairly similar, but now we have a full 3D model and we've got running animations, jumping animations, and some other things. All right, I'm going to hit escape to log out. So this is what happens. This is how we're going to start working with creating a door. When you go to those tutorials, you will learn all about creating more stuff in this content browser for a game, and how to make your player cause events and open doors and things like that. The last thing I want to show in this video is I'm going to show you how similar the content browser is and to where your stuff is. This is going to be new to a number of students, and I just want to make sure you understand. I'm going to look for this folder in my... Actually, you know what? I think I can click File... Edit. No, where are you? Okay, right. I don't think they have it. I'm going to go to where this is in my computer. It's in D drive, and it's in Unreal Projects, and it's called Example. This whole folder is needed for you to save your work. This example.u project is a tiny little file, and look what happens when I click on content. It's got all of the same exact folders here. I'm pointing this out here because this entire example folder in your Unreal projects is necessary. So when you save all, and if you take it home, take home that entire project folder. Okay, bye.